Oh, I'm just kidding you. How you doing, Judy?
Aw, Sandy, you look great.
Oh, man. You look like you had 3 kids. Whoa, you look like you're expecting the 4th. Nice pants, Shazam.
What?
Nice pants, Shazam.
Excuse me? I know you heard that, right? I know I'm not bugging. So, here's one of my favorite shows. I still watch it all the time. I catch it on YouTube mostly. And wouldn't that, like, point to the fact that the movie did exist? Because she didn't just pull that out of a hat. That movie probably came out around this time. This is from 2022. TV show. This episode, rather. I don't know. What you think? Tell me what you think in the comments.
Who is this person? Wrong.
Your
There
mama.
is no Elvis Presley, and there never was. This rock and roll icon's name is actually Elvis Presley. Now, of course that's not true. His name is Elvis Presley, but the earth-shattering feeling you just experienced is what some might call the Mandela Effect. And you're gonna wanna buckle up.
Right now we're reviewing
The Mandela Effect.
BuzzFeed Unsolved Network, excuse me. I'm new to this page. We're gonna go ahead and subscribe. They look like they got some good stuff here. Let's dive in. Is that Shaq? Is that Shaq in Shazam?
Effect is a real phenomenon described as when a group of people adamantly believe an incident or experience occurred that never
Kazam.
did. Scientists at the University of Chicago described the Mandela Effect as, quote, an internet phenomenon describing shared and consistent false memories for specific icons in popular culture. They found that it is both empirically observable as well as, so far, having no clear explanation. The term was created by a self-proclaimed paranormal consultant, Fiona Broom, in 2009 after she discovered she was one of many people who wrongly remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, while the South African civil rights leader lived on until 2013. In one of the most popular instances of the Mandela Effect, people adamantly claim that there's a 1990s movie about a genie called Shazam, and starring actor and comedian Sinbad. The obvious explanation would be that those who remember this are simply confusing this with the 1996 film Kazam about a genie starring Shaquille O'Neal, and conflating it with one of the several Sinbad movies from the same time. In a smaller instance, take a look at this image of the Pokemon character, Pikachu. Many fans of Pokemon remember the character as having a yellow tail with a black tip. However, Pikachu's tail has never had a black tip.
Pikachu always had a black tip on his tail. Because I remember, I had Pikachu toys when I was a kid. I remember the black tip. I remember tracing the zigzag lines on the black tip with my thumb. You're not gonna tell me Pikachu ain't had a black tip on the goddamn tail.
The Mandela Effect has also shown up in instances regarding how people remember movie lines. For example, one of the most widely quoted movie lines in the Star Wars franchise is spoken by Darth Vader in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Many people remember the line as, "Luke, I am your father." However, the words spoken are actually, "No."
See, I've looked this up myself. I went to the video myself because as far as I can always remember, whenever I would have access to anything that alters my voice, like, let me see. Whenever I would be able to speak like this, I used to grab a tube from the toilet paper roll, from the paper towel roll. I used to grab a tube from the paper towel roll, and I used to be like, "Luke, I am your father." I always did that as a kid, as a joke. I remember this, "Luke, I am your father." I remember being on t-shirts, on toy boxes. You're not gonna tell me that it's not "Luke, I am your father." I know that for a fact. I remember that distinctly because whenever I had a chance to say that, I would say it as a joke. It was usually a corny joke, but hey, I got a selective sense of humor. But yeah, I always remember saying, "Luke, I am your father." You're not gonna tell me I definitely remember that.
I am your father. Similarly, in 1937, Disney released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and although many people still quote the line, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all," this is not
Again, when I was a kid, we did a play for school. It wasn't even a big production. It was just us in the classroom. And I remember the little girl, we was all reading from a book, was passing the book around, and it's mirror, mirror on the wall. It is definitely mirror. You know how many times, little kids watch movies over and over again. You know how many times I've watched Snow White?
not actually spoken in the film. The actual line begins with, "Magic mirror on the wall." Now, I must mention that I too have personally experienced this phenomenon. Like many others on the internet, I grew up with a popular children's book series that I thought was the Berenstain Bears, only to find out that it is now, and always was, the Berenstain Bears. But how could this be?
That's not even
Some
a word.
believe the Mandela effect may be due to the many worlds, or the multiverse theory of quantum mechanics. In this theory, people like Broom are not misremembering, but instead, their reality got crossed with another. Though it's now popular in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the many worlds interpretation theory was developed in the mid-20th century and basically states there are many worlds.
So in the 50s? So we've had this belief since the 50s. That's what you're trying to tell me.
Which exist parallel to our own in space and time. The theory was originally developed by Erwin Schrödinger as a way to explain a phenomenon in quantum physics and purports that there are no alternative outcomes to events. All outcomes happen simultaneously. In 1955, Hugh Everett, a then PhD student, introduced the idea of the universe, quote, splitting into alternate versions of itself when faced with a quantum choice. Each possible outcome of a choice creates a new universe, and these universes are identical up until the moment where the event is triggered. It might go without saying, but just in case, quantum physicists in the 1950s developed the many worlds interpretation theory to explain experiments in quantum physics, and not the Mandela effect. But by this logic, both timelines, the one where Mandela died in prison and the one where he lived until 2013, exist, but in separate realities. Those who remember one reality but find it didn't actually happen are not misremembering. They may have lived in one universe and somehow switched into another, or reality itself has shifted. But since there's no Doctor Strange or Green Goblin in the real world, how and why might our realities be shifting so wildly? A popular explanation for how realities are shifting involves CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research. Some believe that CERN is conducting experiments that have caused us to enter an alternate reality, and their Large Hadron Collider is at the center of this conspiracy. The Large Hadron Collider, which opened in 2008 and was recently turned back on in July of 2022 after a hiatus, is the world's most powerful particle accelerator and was created to help scientists better understand the structure and building blocks of the universe. This idea has gained traction on TikTok, where a supposed whistleblower has gone viral making claims such as, quote, CERN is opening parallel dimensions that causes the change in climate. It has long been the topic of fear and conspiracy, but when it was announced it would be going back online, some conspiracy theorists and fans of Netflix hit sci-fi comedy musical show Stranger Things spread rumors that it would open a portal to an alternate universe. As more conspiracy theorists have started discussing CERN's work on TikTok, CERN particle physicist Claire Nellist has taken to responding to some and sharing more about her work with the Large Hadron Collider. I've seen a lot of videos going viral making claims about CERN, and when I see that, it tells me we need to communicate even further because they're getting informed by the conspiracy theories they hear. But not everyone believes we're living out the plot of Marvel's Phase 4 or 5, I don't know, I can't keep track anymore. Some people have a more technological approach and think we're actually living out the plot of the freaking Matrix. As explained in a video that I also made, and is, in my opinion, worth a watch, some believe that reality as we know it is simply just a simulation, and that we are either being controlled or confined by other beings. This scientific theory can be traced back to a seminal paper about the simulation argument from 2003 by Nick Bostrom, but the theory was widely introduced to many people by the 1999 science fiction movie, The Matrix. The concept of a simulation even has its roots in ancient works like Plato's cave allegory or Zhuangzhou's butterfly dream. If there were an error in the simulation and the programmers fixed it, it could lead to false memories, offering a possible explanation for the Mandela effect. As is theorized, a simulation might be created to see how we might react to certain situations, and alternatively, the mistake could actually be on purpose, as our programmers might hope to make us suspicious to see how we might react to that. Essentially, any awareness of a simulation could in fact be part of the simulation itself. What makes many of these theories compelling is that although you cannot prove them, you also cannot definitely disprove them. The biggest flaw in the idea that the Mandela effect is caused by the many worlds interpretation is that the theory only works along the understood lines of quantum physics if information cannot be transferred across worlds. So for the same reason the idea seems plausible, it must also be rejected. As for CERN's work with the Large Hadron Collider, the board of the International Mandela Effect Conference has said CERN is just as valid of a theory as any other at this point. However, one of its members has also noted that the, quote, earliest Mandela effects were happening long before CERN's Large Hadron Collider fired up. In response to conspiracy claims, a spokesman for CERN said, quote, CERN's research captures the imaginations of lots of people, which is why CERN has been featured in a lot of science fiction books, even movies around the world. But excluding the idea that we might be living out the plot of the Multiverse of Madness, Stranger Things, The Matrix, or any number of the Cars movies, there are possibly real-world explanations. According to a 2020 study in the Journal of Psychological Science, 76% of adults made at least one detectable error when asked to recall information. Even though most test subjects scored very high, most people's memories are still capable of making even a small mistake. Some believe that the Mandela effect is the result of our brain reconsolidating memories. MRI research has shown that memories are stored in our brains nearby to similar memories. Caitlin Amote, a neuroscientist, explains, quote, memories are organized in the brain so that similar memories are stored in nearby neurons. When a memory is recalled, those cells are able to change their connection, which allows for the addition of new information. But because neurons that fire together wire together, sometimes false memories can emerge from erroneous connections. For example, if you learn that Alexander Hamilton was a founding father at the same time you learn that he was not president, but other founding fathers were, you are more likely to misremember that Alexander Hamilton was president, because neurons fired when asked about Hamilton were also fired when asked about presidents. A popular example of this could be found in the case of Nelson Mandela's death. In 1977, another anti-apartheid activist, Steve Biko, did die while imprisoned. Both Biko and Mandela were leaders with similar achievements. It is therefore possible that people who remember Mandela dying in prison have actually just woven the memories of these men together. Additionally, the internet might be participatory in a certain amount of suggestibility. According to Amote, suggestibility is the tendency to believe what others suggest to be true. This is why lawyers are prohibited from asking witnesses leading questions that suggest a specific answer. There is also research to prove that when false information is given to us by someone else, it can actually weaken the fidelity of an existing memory. So if someone was to suggest that you had read the Berenstain Bears, your brain might create a memory of you doing so. Like, before the internet, I doubt everyone individually decided that their least favorite word was moist. Perhaps prior to Reddit, people might have met stinky or rat trap with similar disdain. And I'm sure if given enough time, you might also be able to come up with an instance or two where large groups on the internet have fervently formed communities around, to put it nicely, wrong information.
Have you ever been totally sure about something, only to find out you, and maybe thousands of others, were totally wrong? Welcome to the mind-blowing world of the Mandela Effect. Named after the iconic South African leader, Nelson Mandela, this curious phenomenon happens when a large group of people remember something one way, only to discover They've got it all wrong. And trust me, we've got some real head scratchers for you. From New Zealand's mistaken location to wonky memories when it comes to what we love to eat and watch on screen, I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 insane Mandela Effect examples that'll blow your mind. 25. The Great Bear Name Debate. Remember the beloved children's series, The Berenstain Bears? Well, you might recall it as the Berenstain Bears with an E, right? Well, brace yourself. It's always been Berenstain, as confirmed by the Library of Congress. The discrepancy has sparked lots of debate, with many fans swearing by the Stein spelling. It also got a lot stranger when old memorabilia surfaced showing the name Berenstain on the book covers. Since many people believe the Mandela Effect is caused by time travelers messing with our past, that or we live in a parallel universe, I'll leave it to you to decide if this is only a case of mistaken identity. 24. The
both.
turkey leg that never was. If you've ever pictured Henry VIII gnawing on a turkey leg, well,
whatever you said, it could be both.
You're not alone. Many remember a famous painting of the English king seated at a table proudly holding a turkey leg. But here's the kicker. That painting doesn't exist. The actual artwork shows Henry with a pair of leather gloves and the string of a scabbard. The turkey leg image seems to be a collective mirage fueled by a mix of media depictions and the Mandela Effect. 23. Peanut Butter Pandemonium. The world of delicious spreads has its own fair share of mystery thanks to the Mandela Effect. You might remember a popular peanut butter brand as Jiffy, but here's the twist. It's always been Jif. Launched in 1958 after a rebrand.
Choosy moms, choose Jif. That sounds right. I don't know about Jiffy. Choosy moms, choose Jiffy. I don't know. Maybe that's just a slogan. But Jiffy also sounds... I don't feel like there's enough letters on that container. I don't know.
And from Big Top Peanut Butter, Jif has remained consistent in its name. And yet, a lot of peanut butter enthusiasts swear they remember it differently. They're probably getting confused with Jiffy Pop. That's my take on it. 22. Is it Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes? If you've ever wondered whether the classic cartoon featuring Bugs Bunny and pals was really called Looney Tunes with 2 O's, you're not alone. Fans of this iconic series have been debating the name for years. The confusion likely arises because Looney Tunes with 2 O's just sounds like it should fit better with a cartoon about wacky characters. But despite what your memory might tell you, it's always been Tunes.
Yeah.
The mix-up probably comes from Warner Brothers drawing inspiration.
It's Looney Tunes because in the early cartoons there wasn't a lot of voices. First of all, at first there wasn't no voices. It was just a cartoon with music. So they called it Looney Tunes because of the music.
From Disney's Silly Symphonies in the 1920s, which were all about musical shorts.
Right.
So, Tunes with the U was a nod to the musical theme of Warner Brothers' own animated series, not a typo. Still having that debate with my mom. We had a dog named Petunia. When we shortened her name to Tunes, I went with Tunes because Petunia, and she always spelled it Toons. I'm like, that makes literally no sense, Mom. Let me know in the comments below. Who's right, my mom or me? That'll go over well. 21. Pikachu's black-tipped tail. Pikachu, the beloved yellow electric Pokemon, has been a pop culture icon since its debut. But did you know that some fans are convinced that Pikachu's tail used to have a black or red tip?
Like his ears.
According to these fans, Pikachu's tail wasn't always the solid yellow we see today. They remember seeing a distinct stripe or black shadow on the tail. So,
I remember having a Pikachu stuffed. I remember I bought my girlfriend one too when I was 19. I remember buying her one, and the tail had a black marking on it.
Well, it turns out the confusion might come from early versions of the game, Pokemon Red and Blue, where Pikachu's tail did have a black shadow in some sprites. Right. And while some recent depictions, like in Detective Pikachu, might show a black stripe or shadow, the classic Pikachu design has always been just yellow. Hey guys, just jumping in here real quick to tell you some exciting news. You know how you love watching our videos for amazing facts? Well, what if I family a copy today? 20. Mickey Mouse's suspenders. Mickey Mouse, Disney's cheerful mascot, has been a staple of animation since his debut. But why do so many people remember Mickey sporting red shorts with suspenders? Despite what your memory might insist,
Those
Mickey
are
Mouse has
overall.
never actually worn red shorts with suspenders in any official appearance. From his first animation to modern-day renditions, Mickey's classic look has always featured red shorts without the added accessory of suspenders. It's probably
I
the
don't
two
remember
buttons. People think that's where suspenders go, so their brain...
Now, some people that used this, use Mickey without permission might ask the suspenders to him when they draw him. That could happen, but I don't remember him wearing any suspenders.
How he feels in the rest. 19. Would you like some Captain Crunch or Captain Crunch? The debate over Captain Crunch's name is a tasty example of the Mandela Effect in action. While many cereal fans remember the breakfast mascot as Captain Crunch, his official name has always been Captain Crunch. But the confusion doesn't stop at the name. Captain Crunch's uniform has its own set of mysteries. Traditionally, American naval officers wear bars on their sleeves to indicate rank. 1 for ensigns, 2 for lieutenants, and 3 for commanders. However, Captain Crunch's outfit has never quite matched up with these ranks, sporting a mix of bars over the years. So, whether you remember him as Captain Crunch or Captain Crunch, it turns out that the character's uniform, at least, has been proven inconsistent. 18. What the heck is a Fruit Loop? If I've got you confused, the official name has been Fruit Loops since 1963. Here's the backstory. Kellogg's first introduced the cereal as Fruit Loops spelled the correct way in 1959, complete with 3 flavors and Toucan Sam. However, since the cereal had no actual fruit, Kellogg's got sued and had to change the name. They relaunched it as Fruit Loops with the 2 O's in 1963, and that's stuck ever since. But here's where it gets interesting. Some fans remember the name swapping back and forth. One Reddit user even said, "Wasn't it Fruit Loops a while ago, and now it's Fruit Loops again?" Seems like others are in the same boat. So, what's your take? Fruit Loops or Fruit Loops? It's great without the spelling. 17. Mr. Monopoly's monocle.
He had a
Does
monocle.
the Monopoly Man sport a
not
monocle
going to debate
or
this.
not? Many people could swear he does.
I
But the
remember
truth is,
playing Monopoly.
he
Yeah,
never
definitely had a
has.
monocle. I even played
Rich Uncle
Monopoly on Nintendo.
Pennybags, the iconic face of Monopoly, is instantly recognizable with his top hat, mustache, and pinstripe suit. But despite the strong visual memory many people have of him wearing a monocle, it's simply not true. This case of the Mandela Effect has left many scratching their heads. So if you remember him sporting that signature monocle, rest assured, you're not the only one feeling a bit frazzled by the mix-up. I think this one is people confusing Mr. Peanut. I think they're taking his monocle. 16. Where on earth
know
did New
about
Zealand go? Think you've got geography down? Well, you might be in for a surprise. A surprising number of people remembered New Zealand being in a completely different place on the map. Sure, we know that New Zealand is southeast of Australia, but some people swear it used to be northeast, or even in a totally different location. And it's not just New Zealand. People have different memories of where Australia is too. Some theories suggest that alternate dimensions or time streams might explain this mix-up. The idea is that we might have merged realities with another timeline where maps and borders were different. So if your sense of direction seems a little off, well, you're not alone. However, the notion that our reality could have subtly shifted is pretty mind-bending. Or just admit you're bad at geography. No need to bring in time-altering realities. You failed geography. That's all there is to it. 15. Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer. Here's one that's left plenty of people scratching their heads. Is it Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer? As it turns out, the hot dogs and lunch meats brand has always been Oscar Mayer with an A, but plenty of folks remember it as Meyer with an E.
Meyer.
What really messes with people
That's what I
is the jingle. You know the one. My baloney has a first name, it's OSCAR. My baloney has a second name. There has been much frustration over the mix-up since people remember to be singing along to M-E-Y-E-R and not M-A-Y-E-R. 14. Sinbad never played a genie. Do you remember Shazam, that movie in which comedian Sinbad played a genie? Well, if you do, you should take a good, long, hard look at yourself because that movie never existed. I'm serious. Despite being remembered by thousands of people, Sinbad never starred as a wish-granting genie in the 90s. There was a movie called Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal as a genie, but Shazam simply isn't real. And yet, some people remember Shazam in great detail, including the plot about two kids summoning.
I remember holding the videotape in my hand. The video cassette. I also remember them not having a VCR, so I didn't play the video cassette. But I remember holding it in my hand.
A genie, and even a spectacular pool party finale. It's okay if you think you've seen it, but don't bother looking it up on IMDb. Sinbad's genie role is just a trick of memory, and maybe a touch of Mandela magic. 13. The hyphen in Kit Kat never existed. If you swear that there was a hyphen between Kit and Kat, you're not alone. Plenty of candy lovers distinctly remember the famous chocolate bar as Kit Kat, but guess what? There's no official record of that hyphen ever existing. Despite this, some fans recall the dash as clearly as if they'd seen it yesterday. One Reddit user even shared how they once noticed the hyphen had mysteriously vanished, only to later realize it was never there to begin with. So if your memory is insisting that Kit Kat used to have a hyphen, I hate to break it to you, Kit Kat has always been hyphen-free. Though Spider-Man, don't forget the hyphen.
I'm going to show you guys how my style went from this to this. All I had to do was fill out a style quiz. It asked me different.
12. Do you call it Cheez-It or Cheez-Its? Let's settle this once and for all. The cheesy cracker you love to snack on has always been called Cheez-It. Singular. Not Cheez-Its with an S, and definitely not Cheez-Its with a Z, or Z for my UK people, and Canada. Now, rest assured that if you've been calling it the latter your whole life, you're not alone. A bunch of people distinctly remember them as Cheez-Its, and even swear that that's what it says on the box. But go right now. Take a look at any packaging you can find, and you'll see it's always been
Not gonna see it now.
Cheez-It. Why do so many of us add that extra S or Z if we're really cool? Well, maybe because we never just eat one. 11. A galaxy-sized Mandela effect. Okay, let's move on to one of the biggest Mandela effects in the movie world, and it comes from a galaxy far, far away. If you've ever quoted, "Luke, I am your father," while wielding an imaginary lightsaber, yeah, you've been saying it wrong this whole time. Star Wars, one of the most iconic movie franchises of all time, has captivated audiences since 1977, and The Empire Strikes Back gave us what is often considered the most famous movie line ever. But the actual line Darth Vader delivers, it's not, "Luke, I am your father," it's simply, "No,
Definitely not.
I am your father." It's a small change, but one that throws off countless fans. And who I assume were saying that line into a fan, because everyone did that. Luke, I got it wrong while speaking into a fan. That's always... I don't have a fan with me or else I'd do it. 10. Did Tom Cruise wear shades or not? Ah, the classic risky business scene. Tom Cruise sliding across the floor to Bob Seger's old-time rock and roll in nothing but socks, a shirt, and shades? Well, that's where the Mandela effect kicks in. In countless parodies, from The Nanny to Scrubs, people mimic this iconic moment, often adding sunglasses to the mix. But here's the kicker. Tom Cruise didn't wear sunglasses during that legendary dance.
He don't even look right without the sunglasses. He definitely has sunglasses in this scene. This is like a rehearsal.
He sports a white button-down shirt, socks, and no shades in sight. 9. Lucy's misquoted splainin' moment. This might be a bit before your time if you were born, after the 50s, but in the classic sitcom I Love Lucy, fans often recall Ricky Ricardo exasperatedly saying, "Lucy, you've got some splainin' to do."
Right.
But here's the catch. Ricky never actually says those exact words.
Yes, he does.
While he does use phrases like,
Yes, the hell he does. I remember. Come on, I said, "Lucy, you have some splaining to do. You got some I don't know. Come on now. I still watch. I watch I Love Lucy sometimes now, and I definitely remember him saying, "Lucy, you got some splaining to do." Whenever she used to mess up, she used to mess up a lot. He didn't do it all the time, but I definitely remember him saying that. That's another thing I used to reiterate. That and "Luke, I am your father." Whenever I heard something to make my voice like this, in school, I used to roll up my books and go, Luke, I am your father. I remember all of that, man.
It's like, "Splain that if you can," or simply, "Lucy, splain." The iconic quote you remember is definitely a bit off. 8. Mirror, mirror on the wall. We all grew up with the famous line from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" But guess what? That iconic line is a bit off. The real line is actually, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all." It's one of those slip.
I had a play in elementary school where I was actually Prince Charming. Don't ask me why, because I was a little brown boy. But I remember we used to pass the book around to read from the book because it wasn't even a real school play. We was just doing it in class. A substitute teacher. We had a substitute teacher that day. I remember distinctly it was "Mirror, mirror on the wall."
Slip-ups that stuck in our heads despite the truth.
Mirror,
The next time you
mirror
pop
on the
in your
wall.
old Snow White DVD,
How many times I've seen
watch it on
Snow White?
streaming, listen closely. You might be surprised at how different it sounds from what you remember. 7. Curious George's missing tail. We all remember Curious George, the lovable monkey from our childhood swinging through his adventures and with a tail hanging between his legs. Or so we thought. The truth is, Curious George never had a tail. Despite what many of us recall from those.
You want to know what I remember? I remember Curious George having an ridiculously long tail. That was the whole thing with his books. I remember his books. The tail actually, like when you look at the end credit, the back of the book where the credits is at, his tail would go around the whole edge of the book, all curly and stuff, like like little kid stuff. I definitely remember Curious George having a ridiculously long tail, and that was his whole. That's what made him stand out. Not the fact he didn't have a tail at all. He had a really, really long tail.
Classic episodes and books, George is a tailless monkey. He's been swinging through his escapades without that extra appendage all along. 6. That never happened.
He used to steal stuff with his tail. Like he'll be standing over here, and his tail will be behind you, like picking your pockets or something, or at a fruit stand picking up bananas from the owner, stealing.
When it comes to creepy movies, The Silence of the Lambs is in a league of its own. Jodie Foster's portrayal of FBI trainee Clarice Starling and Anthony Hopkins as the eerie Hannibal Lecter left a lasting impact on moviegoers everywhere. The unsettling dynamic between Clarice and Lecter gave us one of the most widely quoted lines in movie history. Or so we thought. Many people remember Lecter's spine-chilling greeting, "Hello, Clarice." It's referenced everywhere from memes to horror spoofs, but guess what? Yeah, it never happened. In reality, Hannibal simply says, "Good morning," when they first meet. 5. Tinkerbell never wrote the Disney logo. Many Disney fans swear they remember Tinkerbell magically spelling out the word Disney with her wand in the iconic opening sequence of Disney films. She'd zip around, waving her wand, and then dot the I with a magical spark. However, as familiar as this scene might feel, the fans are wrong. While Tinkerbell did appear in some Disney intros, especially in the 90s, she was never shown writing out the logo itself. Her role typically involved flying across the screen and sprinkling fairy dust over the Disney castle, but she never took on the job of spelling out Disney with her wand. It's just a classic case of our collective memory mixing up magical moments.
Sure.
But she definitely did go ting,
and
that's when the transition would happen. Usually on top of the castle. 4. Play it again, Sam. Casablanca is packed with memorable lines, but one of the most famous is also one that never actually appeared in the film. Despite popular belief, Humphrey Bogart's character Rick never says, "Play it again, Sam." What actually happens is that Ingrid Bergman's character Ilsa requests a song As Time Goes By with the words, "Play it, Sam, play as time goes by." Later in the movie, Rick simply tells Sam, "You played it for her, you can play it for me." So how did Play It Again, Sam become so widely misquoted? Classic Mandela Effect, people, enforced by Woody Allen's 1972 film Play It Again, Sam, which helps cement the misquote in pop culture. 3. The curious case of Beam Me Up, Scotty.
Beam me up,
The phrase
Scotty.
Beam Me Up, Scotty
Beam me
is
up,
synonymous with Star Trek and is as iconic as any of the show's taglines. However, this famous line is never actually said in Star Trek. At least, not in that exact form. While Captain Kirk often communicates with the Starship engineer Scotty to be transported back to the Enterprise, the specific line, "Beam me up, Scotty," never appears in the original series nor films. The closest the show gets is variations like "Scotty, beam me up," or "Beam us up, Scotty," which were used in different Star Trek media. Over time, though, the phrase "Beam me up, Scotty" became so ingrained in pop culture that it took on a life of its own, forever associated with Captain Kirk and his space-traveling adventures. Oh my god, that's from redshirtswillalwaysdie.com. what a site name. 2. The chocolatey truth about Forrest Gump's famous line. Who can forget the heartwarming wisdom Forrest Gump's mama passed on to him? The line, "Life is a box of chocolates," has been quoted everywhere, from casual conversations to motivational speeches. It's become an instantly recognizable pop culture gem. However, there is a twist in this sweet piece of wisdom. In the movie, when Forrest sits on the park bench and shares this famous quote, he actually says life was like a box of chocolates. The past tense might seem like a small detail, but it changes the context. Forrest is recalling advice his mother gave him, reflecting on how unpredictable life can be. The misquote likely snowballed because it just felt so fitting in the present tense, and that's how it stuck in our collective memory. 1. Mona Lisa's smile. Okay, let's be honest here. In Da Vinci's famous portrait of the Mona Lisa, do you remember her smiling or not? You might be surprised, but thousands of people are convinced she wasn't smiling at all. Even though it's one of the most recognizable paintings ever, some people swear that Mona Lisa has a blank, almost neutral expression, which brings me back to that alternate universe theory. It's crazy to think such an iconic painting could cause so much debate. I mean, her mysterious smile has been analyzed and talked about for centuries, right? Fun fact, her name wasn't always Mona Lisa. It was actually Mona Lisa, which translates to "my lady," and a simple spelling error that changed it. But this whole smile or no smile thing, well, that's got people thinking way beyond typos. Maybe her smile means that we're in the right timeline after all. And that's a wrap. If today's mind-bending examples left you...
Yep, that's a wrap. That's it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed this, whoever's watching. Thank you. Please like, subscribe, and share. I'm definitely going to do more of these more often. So stay around. Peace.